Guys, girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's BTC Gambler here. Listen, I hope you are all well. A long time has passed since I last done a video. There was reasons for that. Okay, there were two fundamental reasons why that's the case. One, I don't really want to discuss. Okay, I had a personal family issue that was life-changing event that happened. It was awful, terrible. It really puts life into perspective in many different ways. There was one person I confided to in Discord, and yeah, all I'm going to tell you is that it was bad, and I don't want to really discuss it too much because it was a personal matter related to my family, and it was, yeah, a life and death situation, to be honest with you, and it really puts things into perspective. And the other one is because I've known for the last 3 weeks of a security flaw within Alphaverse, and I was a bit afraid to announce it because I didn't want to advertise it, if you know what I mean, because the security flaw is quite severe. I wanted to make sure I had a proper and thoroughly tested fix before I released this video. I have done multiple videos before this, but I've scrapped it all because it waffles on too much, and I want to get absolutely straight to the point. Listen guys, you need to quite urgently right now shut your Alphaverse down, and you need to do a git pull, and the only words in the description of this video will be the step-by-step copy and paste commands that you need to run to update your Alphaverse. So there were two fundamental issues. One was obvious and one was not obvious. The obvious one, if you're sitting there right now, you can go to your web page and you can put in the /status. Okay. Now, I did not even know this web page existed. Now, for you, it will look different. For me, mine's been fixed. But when you go to that page, I think you're going to be slightly horrified. And especially if you're running this on public infrastructure. That's on a public IP. Guys, you need to stop it and shut it down, please. Apologies, this mistake happened. I didn't know it was there. It was brought to my attention, and I've been spending well over a week now trying to find a resolution for this, and it was extremely challenging, to say the least. Now, I couldn't completely 100% remove all of the personal data because it is a fundamental part of the functioning of Alphaverse, but it's not going to have things like API keys, auth tokens, two-factor secrets. There was no reason for that to be there. It was only there just for lazy coding. Anyway, just know this has been resolved now, and you need to follow the instructions in the description of this video, and it's the most important message of this video. Okay, update your Alphaverse, because that was vulnerability number 1. Vulnerability number 2 was not so bloody obvious, and it was a weakness and flaw in my mind. Now looking back at Alphaverse, it was a weakness and a flaw in the way that the proxy agent was deployed. I don't know why, the whole thing was wrapped up in an app image file. But when you look at it, when you look at the code for the proxy, this file here, index.js, this is literally the proxy. This is it. We don't know why it was all wrapped up in a bloody app image file. The app image file covers all of this, and then when you compile this, that creates a nose module and a JSON lock file, and they can get humongous. And yeah, and when you do package it up, it also includes the binaries for the operating system as well. It was like, what the fuck, for a few lines of code? Like, seriously? And the problem with that was, it meant bundled within that, obviously the package.json is going to include the dependencies, and the dependencies, obviously you all know, in any package needs to be updated on a frequent basis. So anyway, they were all severely out of date. They hadn't been updated for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then when I went ahead and checked it, there were severe vulnerabilities, a number of them. And because they were all wrapped up in a single master binary image called app image, which was a bit crazy now thinking about it, there was very little that could be done about it. And the last thing I want for you guys is to expose vulnerabilities. This video is all about security, And the challenge I had, and a big shout out to Dad34. Dad34 helped me where OpenAI couldn't. I hit a brick wall where I was unable to get the code working outside of the app image. And it turned out when I first packaged or built this application, I had Electron globally installed. Electron has changed a lot over the years, and it was impossible to tell which version of Electron I compiled the application in, and I hit an absolute brick wall, and I spent probably a week fighting with that. Obviously consciously aware that there's this security vulnerability, and consciously aware I did not want to announce this security vulnerability. Now that I have announced it, guys, you need to shut down and you need to update now. Okay, and I'm sorry that I've put you in that position, but it's my duty to inform you that needs to be done. DAV34 is my hero. He was able to work out the version of Electron for me where OpenAI couldn't. ChatGPT 4.0 got into fights and arguments over it. It went so low, so deep into in the complete the wrong direction that it wasted a lot of my time, effort and energy and frustration. Anyway, what we've done, so for clarity, Electron is different to Alphaverse in the code base is written in CommonJS, and it's written in CommonJS because it has to be written. Electron does not support ESM modules, and so it has to be CommonJS. And so because of that, it can't sit under the same folder structure as Alphaverse. Because in Alphaverse, if you look at the package.json, we have this node type, this type set to module, and that allows ESM modules, and we do use them extensively throughout Alphaverse. So you can't coexist it under the same package.json. And so the only way we can effectively run this is having it under a separate folder structure from alphaverse-live. And now I first thought about, I'm going to have to no choice but to create a new GitHub repository. And I just thought that's just a pain in the ass to manage. So what I have done is actually, rather than do that, I've included the source code under a folder called agent when you run a git pull. And then I've written a bash script file, and I'll show you that. The bash script file that it's going to say build agent. You only need to do it once, okay? But obviously we need to maintain it because security is going to be a key thing here. So what this does is basically going to take a copy of that folder, put it into a root folder in your home directory called proxy, and then it's going to see the internet and it's just going to do a yarn install, or it could have done npm install, doesn't matter, we're using yarn or npm. So, and once we got it there, we're then freely, independently, outside of Alphaverse, able to update the dependencies going forward. So this has given us a good foundation to work forward from a security perspective, where we can update the dependencies as and when they sort of need updating. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, guys? This may sound like seconds of work to you, but I cannot say to you how much work has gone into doing this. Alphaverse has pretty much been a large proportionally recoded, and I've done some of my best coding, Jenga ninja coding that you won't probably even care about. You just want it to work. But I've done, I think, some of my best work ever, to make this all work for you guys. And security is the key thing that I want to emphasize on. Now, in the last week as well, let me show you a couple of things. So in the other videos, which I'm not even going to bother showing because they just waffle on about shit about too long, I collected the monthly, I collected the weekly, and I wrote a new script, and it's called claim rate back. So you can now run the command. Just get back to the client. You can now run node client claim rate back. Yeah. So you can, and I suggest that you only do that once a month. Now, I don't know if it's true, but believe it, been reliably told, if you don't claim back any rate back, then your monthly would be larger. And I have to say, mine was very good. And I'll show you snapshots of my monthly and weekly and reloads rather than showing the whole bloody video, because it'd be boring, I think. Here's the video playback of the time when I collected the monthly. So I collected 2,789. This was on a Thursday last week on the monthly. Okay, and that was this playing, just wagering. Yeah, just wagering, not winning, not losing, just wagering. Yeah, so that's free money. It's free money. I then went on to claim the weekly, and the weekly paid out $466. And then I ran that. I wrote a little script that when I click this button here, it did the rate back on every account. So I just wrote a script to it, and that paid out basically $200. So what was that? 5273. Yes, over the last few days, I basically got 3,400 in VIP perks, and I'm just continuing to run. So I have to say, I found the version 21 of the Infinity Code a little bit hit and miss, and I'm not sure how you guys are getting on with it, but for me, with 165 accounts, I found it quite difficult to sustain a profit. So yeah, I don't know how you guys got on, but it wasn't quite working for me. So I wrote a new version of the code, and a new version of the code is in Discord. You might have just seen it randomly pop up. So yeah, and I called it here. It was called Infinity Code Dual Code No Vault Edition. What this version 1.1, and what this basically was I was in no man's land. I was so focused on trying to fix this issue, and I cannot emphasize the number of hours that I'm putting into this, guys. I swear to you, I'm glad it's over and done with now. I had something like a 50-point check because I made so many changes to the code. Yeah, tests that I had to run with expected outcomes and then results, and pretty much every one of them required some remediation work. This was the most finicky piece of code that I've had to write in a very long period of time, and it's taken up pretty much over my entire life. And I'm glad I can hand it over to you guys now. I can't guarantee that I haven't made a mistake. We're all human at the end of the day, but I've done my damnedest to make sure that I haven't made a mistake. And in the video that I'm not even going to bother showing, I went through an install line by line, but I'm going to give you guys credit that you can follow instructions, and if you have any issues, you raise it up with help. But right now, like I said, can't emphasize how important enough it is for you to shut down your alphaverse and update it. Seriously, there was even going to the status page, especially if you're in a public IP, guys, you need to stop it, please. Yeah, version 1.1 of the code was like what I call no man land code. I didn't know what to do because I was concentrated on fixing the issue, and I was desperate to get this video out to you guys. And then having a million obstacles and complications to the point where I eventually got it. Okay, and then I didn't want to have a fight with having to edit a video that went over many, many days. I just thought, right, fuck it, I would just create a new video from scratch and get straight to the freaking point. And that's why I'm just doing this video. So the new version of the code doesn't wager as much as the other one. It's exceptionally stable. It's been running since like Thursday last week, but it doesn't wager as much. I've estimated, I've just restarted this. You could see here, it's run for 1 hour and 31 minutes because there were two versions. We'll come back to the reason why there's two versions. But in that 1 hour and 31 minutes, you need to be waging around about 50 TRX an hour to get to the sort of $1,000 mark. And this isn't there. Like I said in the other video, which you haven't heard or not, probably never going to see, I said the road to enlightenment is to know that you don't know. And one of the things that we don't know is how they frigging calculate how much to pay you on a weekly and a monthly basis. No one knows that formula. So I could change this. I'm highly tempted to change this to increase the amount of wagering. But I'm very keen to see, hang on a minute, I'm willing to risk a week wagering a lower amount to see what impact that has on the weekly. Because if it's the same, hey, why risk anymore, right? Yeah? So that's what I'm thinking here. Let me just do the boring stuff. I will wager this for the week, and then I will determine the level of risk. But I have to say, this is exceptionally stable. So yeah, going back to the code on that. So here it is. Yes, in my Visual Studio. So it's basically exactly the same as the Novo edition of the Infinity code, where your vaults in your balance, and it's very boring. It takes 1/200th of your balance. It divides your balance up by 200, and you're only playing with 1/200. So basically, if you had a 200 balance, for example, your start balance is 1 TRX, and that's it. And then the base bet is 1/1000th of 1/200th of your balance. And you can see why, and then if we look at the math behind that, what it's going to do is going to basically say, it's going to, if I changed all this. I changed it all for version 1.2, because once I fixed the issue, then I went back and looked at the code, because I realized it was inefficient. Because I need another spreadsheet to show you, so you don't think I'm going crazy here. I need to undo a few things. So this is the code at the moment. We've got a 200 start balance, but in effect your plan is that you've only got 1 TRX in the balance. So your base bet is basically, when it goes into stage 2, it's the Infinity code, but the only difference between the Infinity code and this one is it's running Dragon Tower as stage 2 rather than using dice. So it's 50-50 odds. It's going in looking for 5 losses in a row, and then it goes in hard 164. Your balance divided by 64, which in this instance would be 1/200th of your balance. Does it make sense? This is making sense. I hope so. And then when you calculate out, it busts out at -18, and then I had a secondary recovery pot sitting in my Mr. BTC Gambler account of 2,900. Should that crash, which I've had to call upon, say over the last week or so, probably 5 or 6 times. So you could say once a day. I'll probably have to call that. And it covers up to -23. Now, that was lazy, because I thought, it's not efficient either. And I thought, if we're not taking advantage of how actually Alphaverse works, I can effectively achieve the same thing. But if you look at this, and I needed 35,900 TRX to run this. I had them funds, and so I just left it there. And I needed the Alphaverse to do something, because I need the wagering to happen. But then again, I didn't have the time to focus on it. So this was the lazy version. And then I thought, and it was at the back of my mind. And it was only today that I actually changed it, And then when we looked at those stats just now, it's only been running this way for the last hour and a half or so. But all week it's been running like this, whilst I've been doing other bits. Now, to take advantage of Alphaverse, we could say, why not? Technically you could go really low down here, because we're only playing with 1 balance. You could technically say every account's only got 1 TRX, still set the same base bet amount, but it will bust. The first bust will be in -10. And we had a recovery pot, so ignore that. The recovery pot was 150, not 199. And the reason was that one, because I did have it at 1. So I've just added in the recovery pot. So if we had a recovery pot of 199, by the time it crashes, you still got 70 in the balance, and the next bet is 272. Next bet is 342. So it doesn't do it. So having a recovery pot of 199 was a bit of a waste. So I said we'll reduce that down to 150, and that's going to be important when we go back to the other spreadsheet in a minute. It's the same crash point. It makes no difference. 150, 199, no different. -19, 150. Just revising those figures. You see, guys, spending too many hours looking at too many screens, you have no idea. I've got 4 screens open, okay? And on that, I've got multiple putty sessions open. I've got multiple WinSCP sessions open. I can't tell you how many mistakes I've made just because I copied and pasted something in the wrong place. Very, very annoying and frustrating. My own fault. So here's another prime example here. Like, yeah, I'm saying there's no difference, but actually now looking at that, 170 would be a better idea, because it does actually give me an extra crash point. Okay, probably by the time you see this video, this will be updated and it'll be 170. I'm definitely going to change that. I'm definitely going to change that. Okay, that totally threw me. Okay, I need to change this anyway, so I'm going to change that to 170. So version 1.2 is basically there in Discord as well. So 1.2 is the same as 1.1. However, it's calculated out what the bus threshold is. I said here recovery part is 150, but I'm going to change that to 170. That's miffed me. That is really miffed me. Okay, look at the difference in required funds needed to start this. You know, right down to 7,900 TRX from 35,000. I withdrew quite a lot of money today simply by optimizing this. And I thought if we had 10 recovery pots in play, you know, that's going to put us in quite a comfortable situation. I mean, let's go back up to Alphaverse. You know, pretty much all of them. Most of them spend 99.99% of their time in stage 1. Yeah, it's very stable, guys. Stable and boring is good. So as I said, you can run this how you want to run it. So I'm going to update the recovery pots. Now I've got a neat way of doing that using that little button up there. I'm going to write a piece of code that is basically going to say have a centralized copy of the server config on the server on the share. I'm going to manually update the server so the recovery pot says 170. It's important that each of the clients have exactly the same amount in the recovery pot because the client code for the software this runs, the DiceBot, is using that figure in the server config to work out what the recovery pot size is. So recovery pot equals config.recover amount, and that is in the server config. So that's why they all need to be identical to the server, because in stage 2, if it gets the recovery pot, so here, if there's a win and your balance is greater than the recovery pot, so not on a loss. So on a loss, the recovery pot is doing what it's meant to do, it's chasing losses. On a win, it doesn't need to, it needs to put the recovery pot back in the vault. And so there it says it uses that variable recovery pot, and that recovery pot is picked up from the server config. So it's important that each of the client has the correct server config. So I will create a copy of the server config. I will put it in the share file location on the server. I will write a script that copies down from the central server locally into my client folder and also in my mount folder. I will be using the script to update it all. That has become immensely useful for me. If you're not using that enough, yeah, you really need to talk to me, because I use that for everything from shifting all the funds to one account to claim rate back and updating to a newer version of the code. It's pretty much anything. It's immensely useful. Listen, I'm going to end this video here because the key point I wanted to get across is security. There was a security vulnerability that I needed to tell you about. I need you to run an urgent update. I'm apologizing up front. It's been rectified now, and don't run under the old version of the code. There's loads of security vulnerabilities. Obviously, if you do, you run it at your own risk. Okay, you've been warned, you've been told. This is an urgent video, and the instructions to do that are in the description of this video, and that will be the only description in this video. Just follow it line by line, and if you have any issues, reach out for help and support in Discord. You know, you shouldn't. I'm giving you guys the respect that you deserve. I'm pretty confident that you'll be able to work this out. With regards to what we're running, you'd obviously, I've always said, repeatedly said, you know, you don't have to copy anything I do. You know, Alphaverse is just a framework. You can run whatever you want to run on it. You know, you don't have to take my advice. I encourage collaboration. And I've seen some great collaboration going on in Alphaverse, and I want to keep that momentum going. Okay, and now that I have a bit more time, now I can focus fully on this. You know, I've got a load of other jobs that need to be done. There's a few people that want hosting up and running. All of you guys have been waiting. I'm sorry. Like, this was more urgent. Okay, and now I can start paying attention on the other things. Alphaverse is boring. When it's good, it's boring. Okay, and it gives you back time. Right, I'm going to end the video, guys. Any questions? You know where to find me, and I'll speak to you all again very, very soon.